We warmly welcome you all to our podcast series, the ONTOPIC'22, organized by the Commerce Society of Royal College, where we have an insightful talk on a trending topic in the field of business and economy. Today in our episode, we'll be diving deeper into the depths of some key aspects of cybersecurity, which is a global trending topic in the present world. Our guest is a chartered engineer, certified gamification master, and holds an MBA and a first-class honours from City University in London. With over 20 years' experience in the IT service industry, he was also selected as one of the world's top 100 leaders by technologymagazine.com. He currently serves as the Executive Vice President and CIO of Virtusa. I would like to warmly welcome Mr. Madu Ratnayake to our podcast series, and thank you very much, sir, for taking time out of your busy calendar to join us today. I'm Kalyamettananda, hosting this episode.
Our first question: how do you define cybersecurity?
Yeah, so cybersecurity is really about three things, right? It's defined as what's called the CIA, how to ensure confidentiality of your data. For example, if you have some confidential thing, how do you ensure confidentiality? Second one is called A, which is availability. How do you make sure it's available? Nobody can bring it down, or it's available to people. And the third one is called integrity, right? How do you make sure that people don't come and change it? Like if you're in a bank account, you want to make sure a hacker doesn't come and change your bank account and money in the bank and so forth and siphon out. So it's simply defined on those three lines. How do you ensure confidentiality, availability, and integrity of data and systems that we use? That's a textbook definition of cybersecurity. But if you really look at on common day to day, what we call about cybersecurity is really about everything that you do to defend any digital infrastructure, right? Whether it's your phone, or whether it's your company website, or your school website, or your bank's platforms. How do you really build protection around cyber attacks? And in the event of there's attack, how do you quickly recover? So everything that's to do with those things are called cybersecurity, right? So it's a very interesting field, has a lot of technology, business, and a combination of these things.
Next question to you, sir. How do we protect sensitive information handled and stored by internet?
Yes. So that's a big part of cybersecurity is about protecting confidential information. One of the ways to do is to make sure that you put up enough of security around it. It's like, how do you protect your valuable assets inside the house, right? You put a gate, and then you maybe put an alarm if somebody comes through the gate, and then inside the gate, you might inside the house, you might have a safe and lock and key and so forth, right? Just like what you would protect your valuable asset inside the house, cybersecurity is about putting those different sets of controls and mechanisms so that only authorized people can access, but the unauthorized people can't access, right? So it's things like putting a firewall. It's like putting a fence around your house. There's a firewall around your infrastructure. Then you put a encryption where you actually take the data and encrypt it. So even if somebody takes it, it's meaningless, right? So there are multiple things like that, which helps you protect your infrastructure and information, confidential information. And the third thing you do is you back them up, right? So you, even if the information is stolen, if it's backed up, then you can restore and continue work at least without interruption. But you may have an issue with the disclosure of the information, but you can at least, the disruption of the business can be minimized, right? So those are different ways of doing it. There are different domains of cybersecurity that addresses different aspects of protecting confidentiality.
Right, it's clear that cybersecurity is very important to us. What are the biggest cybersecurity threats right now?
So what is called the threat landscape changes every day, right? There are new things coming in. So right now, some of the biggest risks or threats are what's called the ransomware, right? Where ransomware is somebody comes in and take hold of your information and then make it unusable by encrypting it, right? So they come to your system and encrypt so that you can't any longer use the system. And they say, only if you give me some ransom, pay me some money, I'll give you the key so you can unlock the data and use it, right? Or unlock your system and use it. So they come in and lock it and go away, saying, if you only give me money, I'll give you the thing, right? So that's one of the biggest issues today. One of the most prevalent cybersecurity risks are around ransomware.
Fourth question. What are the new types of frauds found on the internet and other cyber?
Yes, so there are lots of new types of issues comes every day, right? So one of the now growing risk is what is called the supply chain risk. Say, for example, you are a company, you have done everything to protect yourself, but then you have a supplier who also use part of your company's supply chain, and if they haven't protected, and that becomes a easy way to get into you, right? So there's another trusted party. Then, so supply chain risk is one of the another key things that that happens, and there are a few other areas that really drives challenges into cybersecurity.
Right, sir. So our data is something very valuable to all of us. So how do we protect our data from cyber frauds and hackers?
Yeah, so I think there are many ways to protect your data, right? Firstly, I think that most of the cyber attacks, about 90% of cyber attacks come from through email, right? They come through email as a what's called a phishing mail. It's like a fake mail come to you saying, hey, you won a lottery, or you have some money, somebody has left to you, click this button, and then it'll open up and probably ask your password or ask you to share something, right? And then you might say, oh, it might look like your mail from your bank, right? And you might click that link and put your bank password and user ID, then they'll catch those things and then go to the real bank and take money out. So number one thing is to make sure that you don't open and click on emails that or attachment that you don't know where it's coming from, right? They're very smart. They will look very much like coming from a bank, or very much look like coming from a company like Microsoft, right? So that you'll be tempted to open. So very carefully read. When you really look at it, you will see in the email address, it might be slightly misspelled, right? So in a way that you can't distinguish if you don't pay attention, right? So that's number one thing. Really be careful on clicking on the link and opening attachments on the mails that's coming to your mailbox if you don't know them, right? The 90% of things come through that. The second way to do is to make sure that you have your operating system and your phone, whatever else that you're using on your machine, any other software is up to date, right? If the software is outdated, there might be some security holes in those software that the vendor has fixed. You may not have it because you are not keeping up to date. Your phone has to be up to date. Your machine has to be up to date. Your office computer has to be up to date. So that anything at least people have figured out how to fix, you have that. So that's, I think, with the second thing, right? The third thing is making sure you create backups. Whatever you do, sometimes you might get attacked, you might have some issue. So having your information backed up will help you recover quickly in the event of there's an attack, right? And the third thing would be to really invest in things like antivirus software, right? And some of these things cost money, but it's well worth spending a few dollars or a few hundred rupees to put that in, right? Because they will protect large amount of attacks that comes on your way can get protected by that, right? So that might be the few easy things to do to really make sure that you are really have some basic level of protection, so that your computer, your phone, and your office machines and your servers, and if you're on the cloud, so those are basic things. There are a lot of other things like firewalls you can enable on your router, right? If you have a router, make sure that you have a good password put in there. Enable if you have a Gmail and if you have Facebook and LinkedIn kind of IDs, enable the two-factor authentication, right? What means that you're not only logging with the password and ID, but you are logging with a phone, and phone will send you a SMS, and that's called the two-factor. You have to demonstrate that it's you by giving you password use ID, as well as giving you a PIN through your thing. So that's, you can enable that in most of your bank accounts. Bank accounts in Sri Lanka is by default, you have to have it. But if your Gmail and other mail things that you use, you can enable two-factor, right? So these are few basic, easy things to do that'll take care of a good 90% of the, even more than 90% of the issues that you might face, right? And these are called the hygiene things, right? If you take care of these hygiene things, you'll avert a lot of the issues that might come your way.
Thank you very much. So, final question to you. What is your advice for the younger generation of the country for the correct use of internet and cyber media?
Yeah, I think the internet usage is really very crucial these days. You can't do without internet, right? And as I said earlier, it's about being cautious and not going to things, areas that you don't know, not talking to people on the internet who come in contact with you, who you don't know, right? They might be pretend to play innocent, but they might be coming in and figuring out information and even physically harm people, right? So you'd be very, very careful interacting with people on the internet. You have to be very careful with sharing information on the internet, right? And also putting things on the Facebook and Instagram and things like that. Make sure that you put things, only things that you won't regret later on when you grow up, right? Because some things that you put on the internet will stay there forever, right? You might delete it from the account, but it's get cached in somewhere else. It might get, somebody might forward it to somewhere else. So generally, once you put something out there, it's very difficult for you to take it back, right? So think carefully before you put stuff there, that when you're grown old, 25 years old, and you're trying to go for a job and somebody search you and you won't find something embarrassing or something that you don't want to be seen at that point, right? So be careful what you're posting. Those are a few things that you can do to make sure that you are taking care of your basic cybersecurity and basic good practices when you're using internet. More importantly, I want to also share that cybersecurity as a field is becoming very, very hot and very exciting. There's a lot of opportunities and a lot of money. There's a very highly paid industry. So if somebody is interested in looking at a career in cybersecurity, this is also a very, very lucrative and very highly interesting area, right? You know, you can play very different types of roles. You might have to have a bit of a computing background, and then you can specialize in something like cybersecurity, and then you will have lots of demand globally here in Sri Lanka as well as globally. So it can give you like a global passport to go to anywhere in the world to work. Right? So it's an exciting opportunity as well.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us today. Your presence and wise words help to magnify our cause in the best possible way, making this project a huge success. We look forward to our next interactions. Wishing you all the best for your future endeavors.
Thank you very much.